This is Ghosts of Asia, a place where the dead don't rest quietly, where ancient spirits haunt modern cities, where forgotten stories slip through cracks in concrete and crawl into your dreams. Tonight we go somewhere high, not to the sky, but to a place we should have never gone back to. Above the 12th floor, beyond the reach of elevators, where no one lives, but someone still waits. In the heart of Hong Kong, inside a decaying tower marked for demolition, a delivery girl takes one last job. One floor too high, one door too open, one smile too soft to be trusted. And now she's trapped in a loop that no app can fix. Every route leads back. Every package is colder. Every step pulls her deeper into a floor that doesn't exist. You are about to hear what happens when technology meets the spirit world, when urban silence hides ancient echoes, and when a ghost decides it's your turn to deliver. So sit back, turn off the lights, and whatever you do, don't take the stairs, because this is The Elevator Doesn't Stop Here anymore. The rain in Hong Kong wasn't supposed to sound like this. It dripped with too much rhythm, like tapping fingers on glass, like someone knocking from the other side of a wall you couldn't see. Outside, the neon signs flickered in dull pulses, their glow seeping through streaked apartment windows and puddling on the floor like blood made of light. Down on the street, soaked to the bone beneath her thin plastic poncho, May waited at her scooter, shivering. It was nearly midnight. Her fingers ached from gripping handlebars in the cold. Her phone buzzed again. Not a call, not a message, just a quiet notification from the delivery app. Another route, another stop, another stairwell to climb. You've received a new order. Pickup complete. Delivery in progress, flat 14C, wing B, Fuxing Tower. She blinked at the address. Fuxing Tower. That name stirred something. Familiar, not in the way landmarks are familiar, but like an echo of a warning she'd forgotten. She tapped the screen. No customer name, no delivery notes, just leave at door. She looked up. The tower stood across the road, barely lit, its face streaked with time and water damage. It leaned forward slightly, like it was listening. Even from here, the air felt thicker. The lights didn't flicker, they pulsed, like a slowed heartbeat. She crossed the street anyway. The glass entrance was smeared with old tape and sun-bleached signs. Demolition pending. Unsafe past level 12. Do not proceed without clearance. Another sticker, official looking, government issued, peeled halfway off the metal frame. The intercom buzzed with static when she tried pressing it. No answer. She pushed the door. It opened too easily. Inside, the lobby was musty, hollow, almost too quiet for a city that never truly slept. A single bulb swung overhead, casting shadows that stretched across the cracked floor like hands reaching towards her. A security desk sat at the far end, behind a clouded plastic barrier. An old man behind it snored softly. A faded uniform slumped around him like loose skin. She approached. "Excuse me," she whispered. The guard didn't move. She glanced at his badge, twisted, upside down, the name unreadable. A plastic-wrapped bun sat uneaten next to his thermos, long cold. Behind him, the elevator doors were slightly open. May hesitated before stepping in. Inside, the elevator was narrow, caged, its floor creaking under her weight. She pressed the button for 14. Nothing happened. She pressed again. The button didn't light up. She tried 13. The light flickered, then died. The highest it allowed was 12. She pressed 12. The doors shut with a cough. The elevator climbed slowly, groaning like it hadn't moved in years. May tried not to look into the mirrored walls, but her reflection looked different, paler, her eyes sunken in. She blamed the lighting, the stress, the fatigue. Ding! 12th floor. The doors scraped open. Silence. A hallway stretched ahead, faded wallpaper peeling in long vertical strips, like skin shedding from old wounds. At the end of the hall, a stairwell. The door was propped open by a crumpled cardboard box, damp and moldy. She stepped out. The door closed behind her with a sigh, almost like relief. The stairwell was darker than the hallway. No lights overhead, just the distant hum of the city leaking through concrete. Her boots thudded softly on each step as she climbed, each floor number painted on the wall growing more faded. 13. 14. She paused. No markings here, no floor number, no signs. Just a silent hallway coated in a fine layer of dust. But the light above one door, 14C, was on. Faint, yellow, warm. The door was slightly ajar. May's breath hitched. Her phone vibrated once in her pocket. She didn't look. Something about this floor made her feel like every sound she made was being swallowed before it could echo, like the air didn't want to carry her presence. Still, the job was the job. She approached the door. Inside it was warm, almost inviting. A faint scent of chrysanthemum tea lingered in the air. The apartment was clean, neat. The lights glowed softly, like candles under rice paper. No sound of TV, no background noise, just the faint ticking of an old wall clock. An elderly woman stood in the hallway. She was short, thin, dressed in a pale pink nightgown and thick socks. Her hair was silver, coiled tightly at the back of her head. "Oh," she said softly, smiling. "You made it." May nodded, unsure why she suddenly felt small. "Delivery for 14C." The woman reached out gently, both hands wrapped around the paper bag. Her touch was light, almost not there. "Thank you," she whispered. "Please, don't tell them I'm still here." May blinked. "Sorry?" But the woman was already walking backward into the apartment, the door slowly closing behind her. It didn't latch, just hovered half shut. May stood there, holding her breath, unsure why the hallway now felt colder. She turned and walked quickly back to the stairs. Down, past 13, back to 12, back to the elevator. She pressed the button. It took too long to arrive. Inside, the mirrors felt darker. Her reflection seemed delayed, as if she moved a second after she should. Her phone buzzed again, another alert. But when she looked, there was no delivery history, no confirmation, no record of 14C, no payment, just a pinned location, one she didn't set. Default delivery, flat 14C, Wing B, Fuxing Tower. The rain hadn't stopped. May sat on the edge of her narrow bed, the plastic poncho still clinging to her arms like a second skin. Water pooled beneath her boots, staining the floorboards in muddy circles. She hadn't changed. She hadn't moved. She just stared at her phone, at the address pinned to the top of her screen like a scar. Flat 14C, Wing B, Fuxing Tower. She tapped the app, swiped down, refreshed. Nothing changed. No confirmation, no payment, no proof of the delivery. Only that address, as if the app had been rewritten from the inside. May frowned and exited the app completely, restarted her phone. When it powered back on, she logged in again. Same result. She wasn't imagining it. She hadn't been up there for long, 10, 15 minutes at most, but something about it lingered, curling in the back of her mind like steam from a cracked kettle. The woman, her smile, her eyes, the way she'd said, "Don't tell them I'm still here," like she was hiding from something not human, or worse, from something human that had forgotten she was alive. May finally peeled off the poncho and let it crumple on the floor. Her shift was over. She should sleep. But when she closed her eyes, she saw the hallway again. Floor 14, dusty and dim. A place that shouldn't have existed. A place where the lights didn't flicker, they watched. She told herself she wouldn't go back, but the next night came, and the next job notification followed. She wasn't even logged into the app this time. The screen blinked to life on its own. No sound, just vibration, rhythmic and unnatural. A message waited. Pickup complete. Please deliver to flat 14C. Her fingers hovered over the screen. She tried to cancel. A red warning flashed. Order cannot be canceled. Customer has already received prior delivery. That made no sense. Still, she needed the work. Her rent was late. Her scooter needed repairs. One more run wouldn't hurt. She told herself that twice, then a third time, and left. Fuxing Tower looked worse in daylight. It wasn't raining, but the building still seemed wet, as if it absorbed the damp and never let it go. Paint flaked from the outside walls like dead skin. The entrance was the same, taped signs, faded warnings, and that single cracked intercom buzzing like static caught in a loop. She stepped inside. No security guard this time. The desk sat empty, the chair turned away as if someone had stood up and never returned. The thermos was gone, so was the bun. A trail of dark liquid stained the counter, leading nowhere. She walked to the elevator and pressed the button. It opened without delay. Inside, the mirrors reflected her properly this time, but the lighting had changed. Everything looked slightly green, slightly off, like a cheap filter you couldn't remove. She pressed 12. The same groan, the same slow ascent. When the doors opened, the hallway felt warmer than before. A stale, almost sour warmth, the kind of heat that came from something that hadn't been aired out in years. The stairwell door creaked as she pushed it open. Dust clouded the air. Each step felt steeper, the walls closer, the silence heavier. She reached 14 and stopped. This time the hallway light was already on, not just above 14C, all of them. But none of the other doors were open. None of them had light leaking from beneath. Only 14C looked lived in. The door opened before she knocked. A hand reached out, thin and pale. "Thank you, dear," the woman whispered. May blinked. She hadn't spoken. She hadn't even lifted the delivery bag yet. But the woman already had it in her hands, smiling that same soft smile, like they'd known each other for years. "I hope the walk wasn't too hard. It gets colder the more you climb, doesn't it?" May nodded slowly. "It does." The woman's smile deepened. "That's why I never leave." Her hands trembled slightly as she took the package. The warmth of the apartment spilled out into the hallway again, familiar and unnatural. Inside, she could glimpse the same scene: a tidy living room, porcelain cups on a lacquered tray, a couch with embroidered cushions, an old radio softly playing music from a time long gone. There were photographs on the wall, black and white portraits of people in suits, in kippaos, smiling without showing teeth. None of them looked recent. None of them looked alive. "I'm sorry," she said before she realized she was speaking. "About being late, the elevator." "There is no elevator," the woman said gently, as if correcting a child. "They removed it after the incident." Her throat tightened. "What incident?" The woman tilted her head slightly, then stepped back. The door began to close. "Good night, dear." And it shut without a sound. May stood there in silence. Her heartbeat felt wrong. Not fast, not slow, just wrong. She turned back to the stairs, but something stopped her. A feeling. Not a presence, not a sound, just a knowing. That the hallway behind her didn't end where it should. That the shadows were listening. She didn't look back. She ran. Down to 13, then 12, then the elevator, which was waiting. Doors open, lights inside flickering like candle flames. She entered. The doors closed. The elevator didn't move. She pressed G, then 1, then any button she could. Nothing. Only her reflection in the mirror, watching her, and behind her, a faint shape. Not human, not shadow, just something that shouldn't be there. The lights blinked, and when they came back on, she was moving, slowly. The display read 14. Her phone vibrated. She didn't want to look, but she did. A new message had appeared. "Next time, don't be late."
The third time she returned, it was raining again. Not a heavy rain, not the kind that made the world blur into watercolor streaks, but a steady, rhythmic drizzle, tapping on her helmet, on her phone screen, on the world itself, like a countdown no one could stop. May didn't want to go back. She told herself she wouldn't. She even turned off her notifications, logged out of the delivery app, and left her phone charging on the counter. But sometime after midnight, it lit up on its own. No sound, no alert, just that single glowing screen and the message. Pickup confirmed. Please deliver to flat 14C. She tried deleting the app. Her phone crashed, restarted. The app reappeared. This time, she didn't even have to check the address. It was already in her head. Fuxing Tower, Wing B, floor 14. And the stairs. Always the stairs. She parked 2 blocks away, not because she had to, but because she wanted the walk. The longer it took, the more real everything felt. The cold, the city noise, the tired weight in her limbs. She hoped it would shake something loose, snap her out of whatever had pulled her into this pattern. But when she reached the tower, the air around it felt thick again, like walking into water. No security guard, no light above the desk. The elevator door was wide open, waiting like it knew her. She stepped inside, pressed 12. It didn't move. The floor buttons were still there, but none of them lit up now. Instead, the elevator groaned once, then shuddered. The mirrors reflected her from every angle. She looked the same, but not quite. Her expression was duller, her eyes more sunken. Her shoulders slumped in a way that felt too heavy for one day's work. She turned away from the glass and stepped back out into the lobby. She didn't want to ride it again. She would take the stairs. They were worse than she remembered. Colder, narrower, as if the building had shifted in the days between visits, growing heavier with every step she took. The light bulbs were dimmer. Some flickered, others gone completely. Her breath came out in visible puffs now, like she'd stepped into winter. Her phone buzzed again. She didn't want to look, but she did. Don't stop. You're almost there. She climbed faster. The steps between floor 12 and 13 felt longer, steeper. Her calves burned. Her hands brushed the rail, wet, as if someone else had just gone up before her, leaving a cold film behind. She reached 13, paused. The next flight looked darker. No window, no light, just concrete steps fading into shadow. She took them anyway. Every step echoed like it didn't want her there. Every breath felt harder to take. And then, floor 14. No sign, no number, no marker, but she knew it, because the light above 14C was already on. The hallway didn't feel dusty anymore. It felt still, too still. And she realized something she hadn't before. There were no sounds, no pipes humming, no buzzing lights, no footsteps above, no televisions in the other flats, no other residents, just this one hallway, this one door, this one woman, and she was already standing there, waiting. The door opened soundlessly. The woman smiled, just like before. But now, her eyes were glassy, her skin too pale. She didn't blink. "Come in, dear. You're shaking." May didn't move. The air inside the apartment smelled different now. No longer tea and warmth, but something damp, like mildew covered by perfume. She looked past the woman. The apartment had changed. The couch was covered in a white sheet, the chairs gone. The wall where the photos once hung was bare, yellowed from where the frames had once been. The clock was gone. The radio was silent. "You've cleaned," May said softly. The woman blinked. "Oh, I suppose I have." May didn't hand over the package. She didn't remember picking it up. She didn't remember checking for it. But the woman reached anyway, curling her hands around something that didn't seem real, and yet left her hands lighter when it was gone. The woman turned and walked back inside. This time, the door shut sharply behind her. Locked. Click. May stood there, heart pounding, her breath tight in her chest. The hallway was dim again. She turned back toward the stairs and froze, because they weren't there. Where the stairwell door should have been, there was only a wall, solid, seamless. No seams, no hinges, no sign it had ever been a door at all. She ran her hand along the surface, cold, rough, real. She spun around. The elevator. Gone. Only the hallway, only the doors, all shut tight, except one, 14C. The lock clicked again, and the door creaked open. May backed away. Her phone buzzed. She looked. "Come back inside. It's not safe out there." Her vision blurred. She clenched her eyes shut, counted to 3. When she opened them again, the stairwell door had returned, just barely ajar, like it had always been there. She ran for it, didn't look back. By the time she reached the lobby, her lungs burned, her vision spun, her steps stumbled, but she kept going, pushing through the door, out into the night, the city, the tired weight in her limbs. She hoped it would shake something loose, snap her out of whatever had pulled her into this pattern. But when she finally got home, soaked, cold, and shaking, her phone vibrated once more. A new update.
Route saved. Default delivery address confirmed. 14C. She dropped the phone. It didn't break, but the screen stayed on, glowing faintly in the dark. And in the middle of it, reflected in the black, she saw a face. Not hers. Watching. Waiting.
May didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed with the curtains drawn, her phone turned face down on the floor, but she still felt it vibrating, not physically, but in her mind, like a pulse, like a signal trying to pull her back. She watched the ceiling for hours. Shadows moved even when nothing else did. In the early morning, just before the light turned gray, she closed her eyes and immediately found herself in the elevator. Not an elevator, that elevator. She wasn't holding anything, not a phone, not a bag, not even her breath. The buttons were gone. Only mirrors surrounded her. No doors, no seams, just endless reflections of herself, multiplied and warped. And in every reflection, she wasn't alone. Something stood behind her, different in each pane of glass. A shadow with long arms, a face that smiled too widely. A flicker of something watching her, even when she turned around to face it. She tried to scream, but her mouth stayed shut. The elevator began to rise, faster and faster. The mirrors started cracking. And then she woke up, soaked in sweat, heart in her throat, breath shallow as if she'd run 10 miles in the dark. Her phone was back on the nightstand. A new message was waiting. Pickup successful. Deliver to 14C. She stared at the screen. There was no notification sound, no app interface, just black text on white. No option to decline, no way to reply, just a simple command. And something inside her, something tired and quiet, accepted it. Fuxing Tower loomed darker than before. The clouds above it churned without lightning. The sky hung low as if the whole city sagged around this building. No one else stood near it. No pedestrians passing by, no parked scooters. The street outside looked paused, like a frozen frame in a memory no one wanted to keep. May stepped through the door. This time, she didn't pause. She didn't check for a guard or the elevator. She went straight to the stairs. They greeted her like an old friend, familiar, heavy, relentless. She counted the steps as she climbed. 12 to the landing, 15 to the next floor, 10 more to the next, then the numberless floor, the floor that didn't exist, the one she could find with her eyes closed now, the one that waited. 14. The hallway wasn't dusty anymore. It was lived in. Carpet had been laid down, red, worn in the middle. The wallpaper was replaced, or maybe it had always looked this way, with faded floral prints and delicate trim. A small table sat outside 14C now, with a porcelain vase holding a single fresh lily. It looked wrong, like the flower had bloomed somewhere else entirely, in a different world, and had been dragged here. The door to 14C was wide open, and the woman was standing in the light. She looked younger. Not by much, not obvious, but something had changed. The bags beneath her eyes were gone, her cheeks fuller, her movements smoother. She smiled warmly. "I was beginning to think you'd forgotten me." May opened her mouth. She didn't know what she meant to say, but it didn't matter. The woman stepped forward, gently placing her hand on May's arm. "You look so tired, dear. Come in, just for a moment." The hallway light behind the woman was soft, golden, like late afternoon sun, even though outside the sky had no sun at all. May stepped across the threshold. The room inside had changed again. It was full, furnished, alive. The clock ticked again on the wall. The radio played faint jazz. Photographs filled the shelves, the same black and white ones, but this time in color. They showed families, children, weddings, moments of warmth. "I don't understand," May said. "This place, it's empty. It was empty." The woman tilted her head. "Empty things are only empty when no one remembers what used to be in them." May turned to the photos. She picked one up. The woman was in it, younger, smiling, holding the hands of two children. But something was wrong with the background. It was blurred, melted. The windows showed nothing, just gray. "Were you real?" May asked quietly. The woman chuckled. "Everything is real until someone decides it's not." The tea tray appeared again on the table, though May hadn't seen her carry it in. The woman gestured. "Just one cup. You'll feel better." May sat down. The chair creaked beneath her, not from weight, but from memory, like the wood had groaned under hundreds of people before her, people who had also sat, unsure, afraid, tired. She took the cup. It was warm. She didn't drink. The woman sat across from her, folding her hands gently. "I used to live here. So did many others. We worked, we laughed, we had birthdays and funerals and dumplings on Sundays. But the city forgets old things. Developers come, walls are knocked down, floors are sealed. But some of us, we weren't ready to leave." May felt something stir in her throat, a knot of fear and sorrow wrapped too tightly to speak. "You delivered warmth, you know, even when it's cold outside, even when no one remembers we exist." The tea steamed gently in her hands. May looked down. The surface of the tea showed her reflection, but it wasn't her anymore. It was someone older, someone who looked like they'd been there for a long time. She dropped the cup. It didn't shatter, it didn't fall, it simply vanished. The hallway light outside flickered once, then went out. The woman stood up. "You should go now." May hesitated. "I don't know how to leave." The woman smiled gently. "You never do until it's too late." The hallway returned when she stepped back outside. But the air was different now. And when she looked over her shoulder, the door to 14C was already gone. There was only a blank wall. No knob, no frame, no trace. And behind her, the stairwell stretched endlessly downward, like it had forgotten how far the ground truly was. May didn't speak to anyone for the next 2 days. Not her cousin, who sometimes checked in. Not the downstairs neighbor who always asked for spare change. Not even the clerk at the convenience store who scanned her instant noodles and offered the same tired smile. She couldn't speak. Not about what had happened, not about where she had been. Every time she tried to put it into words, the hallway, the tea, the way the door vanished, her throat tightened, her tongue felt dry, her body revolted. So she stopped trying. She disconnected her delivery app, disabled notifications, deleted the cache, everything. But even without it, the phone knew. It pulsed on its own in the dead of night. And when she unlocked it, there were no messages, just the map, always centered on one fixed location. Fuxing Tower, Wing B, flat 14C. No matter what she did, she could type a new address. The pin would slide back. She could try to navigate elsewhere. The blue line curved, always, back to the same point. One night, she tossed the phone into the sink and left the faucet running. It stopped vibrating. But when she returned the next morning, the phone was on the table, dry, powered on, and waiting. That afternoon, she returned, not because she wanted to, but because something inside her had begun to change. She noticed it in small ways, the way she could hear the faint sound of ticking clocks even when none were near, the way mirrors no longer showed her reflection unless she focused, the way she caught herself humming unfamiliar lullabies, soft and off-key, the kind of changes that don't happen overnight, unless something has been with you overnight. She didn't bring a delivery bag this time, just herself and a question. The building welcomed her like it always had. No wind in the stairwell, no noise in the lobby. Only that dreadful sense of familiarity that shouldn't exist, like muscle memory for a place she didn't want to know. She climbed the stairs. The steps no longer creaked. The lights no longer flickered. It all felt too ready. She reached the 14th floor. The hallway was brighter now, not electric light, but something softer, the glow of lamps or candles just out of sight. It smelled of incense and steamed rice. The wallpaper had changed again, no longer floral, but pale gold with red lining, clean and new. 14C's door was open. The woman was waiting. She looked the same, and yet not. Her hair was darker now, her cheeks rosier, her eyes sharper, more aware, less spectral, as if something had been feeding her, as if May had been feeding her, without knowing it, without choosing to. "I knew you'd return," the woman said, stepping aside. May didn't enter. "I have questions," she said. The woman nodded. "You always do." "You said, don't tell them you're still here." "I did." "Who is them?" The woman's smile didn't fade, but it cracked just a little. "The ones who seal floors, who forget the elderly, who sweep away the inconvenient ghosts with renovation permits and caution tape." She stepped closer. "They say we're fire hazards, that our wiring is dangerous, that our plumbing is unsanitary. But really, they just don't want to see what gets left behind. They don't want to hear what the walls remember." May's voice shook. "So you're dead?" The woman blinked, a slow, deliberate blink, and for a moment her skin looked ashen, her eyes glassy, her face hollow. Then she smiled again. "Not yet," she whispered. May's hands clenched. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm still waiting." "For what?" The woman tilted her head. "For someone to take my place." Silence. May stepped back. "I didn't agree to anything." The woman nodded gently. "But you came back, again and again and again." "I had no choice." The woman raised an eyebrow. "There is always a choice, but the more you return, the less you remember how to leave." May's breath caught. She turned to run. The hallway was still there, red carpet, pale gold wallpaper, glowing light, but the stairwell door was missing again. She ran toward it anyway. The wall stayed solid. Behind her, the woman's voice echoed softly. "Don't tell them I'm still here, because if you do, they'll come looking." May turned around. The woman was gone. The hallway was empty. The door to 14C had vanished. And now, she was alone. Truly alone. No way down, no elevator, no light, only her, and the hallway, and the faint sound of something ticking behind the walls. She slid to the floor, hugged her knees. Her phone buzzed once. It had signal. One new message, from a number she didn't recognize. "They're looking for you, but don't worry, you're hidden now." The screen dimmed, and then went black. But the ticking behind the walls continued, as if the apartment itself was keeping time, waiting for the next knock.
May sat in the stairwell until morning, or what should have been morning. But when the light came, it wasn't sunlight, just a pale, flat glow that leaked through the cracks in the walls, like backlight from a broken screen. It didn't warm her. It didn't shift shadows. It simply revealed them. She stood, legs trembling, and turned back toward the hallway. It looked the same, but she knew something had changed. Not in the air, not in the carpet, but in her. She no longer wondered why she was here. She wondered how long she'd been, and if it had ever really started with just a delivery. When she found the stairwell door again, it was open, but only halfway. The gap was narrow, the space beyond strangely blurred, like looking through warped glass. She pressed her palm to it. Cold. Real. She pushed it open and stepped through. The stairs were silent. She descended quickly, floor 13, then 12. The light returned to a harsh fluorescent buzz. Her phone remained black. No new messages. When she reached the lobby, the front door stood ajar. She ran through it like she'd been underwater and finally found the surface. The city greeted her with noise, honking cars, barking dogs, the endless murmur of strangers. For the first time in days, she felt like she could breathe. But something was still wrong. The world looked off. The sky too pale, the shadows too sharp, and no one looked at her. She walked past people on the street, close enough to touch, but none of them turned, no glances, no casual recognition, as if her presence had become optional. She returned home. Her door was unlocked. Inside, everything was exactly where she left it, but colder, as if someone had been there, watching, but never touched a thing. Her phone buzzed once, lit up. No apps, no calls, no notifications. Just one line of text on a white screen. Missing delivery detected. Reroute initiated. She stared at it, throat dry. Another message followed. Previous stop incomplete. Please return to 14C. She tried turning it off. It stayed on. She removed the SIM card. The screen remained. She placed it in the freezer, like she'd once read in a forum thread years ago. It still buzzed, like a heartbeat buried in snow. She visited the delivery office the next morning. A real building, a real person behind the counter. A man in his 30s with tired eyes and an overused keyboard. She slid her phone across the table. "I need help. The app is broken. It keeps sending me to the same address, but there's no record of the delivery, no payment, no confirmation." The man looked at her, then down at the phone.
then back again. What address? Fu Xing Tower, Wing B, 14th floor, flat 14C. The man's fingers stopped moving. His eyes narrowed. There is no Wing B, he said slowly. There is. I've been there. He shook his head. Wing B was sealed after the fire, 4 years ago. Structural collapse, fatalities. The entire block is scheduled for demolition. Her blood turned cold. She leaned forward. I went there yesterday. I delivered food to a woman. She opened the door. She spoke to me. The man stared at her, then slowly opened a drawer beneath the desk. He pulled out a folder, thick, weathered, marked Incident File, Fu Xing. He flipped through the pages, then stopped at a photocopy of a delivery manifest. At the bottom, a name was circled in red. Liu Mei, her full name. Is this you? She nodded slowly. Yes, why is my name? You're listed as a failed contact, one of the couriers sent to that building the week before the collapse. You disappeared, never responded to calls. The investigation was closed when the structure was deemed unstable. May's throat turned cold. She leaned forward. That's not possible. I didn't work for this company 4 years ago. He looked up again, frowning. You're listed here, assigned to 14C. He turned the page. There was a photo. Grainy, blurred. It showed her scooter parked outside Fu Xing Tower, stamped July 17th, 2021, 3 years ago. May stepped back. No, that's not right. That's not my... But her voice cracked because the scooter in the photo had the same scratch on the front panel, the same faded sticker, the same burnt-out left blinker. It was hers. She turned away, breath caught in her chest. The walls felt too close, the light too dim, the world too far. When she looked down at her phone, the screen had changed. You forgot, but we remember. Return to complete your route. Her heart hammered. She left the building without saying another word. She didn't go home. She went straight to the tower. The streets blurred around her. Traffic lights melted into distant colors. The voices of the city faded into static. All she could hear was the ticking, faint, under her skin, inside her skull. The tower was waiting. Its door was open. And when she stepped inside, everything welcomed her. The dust, the silence, the sense of being expected. She climbed the stairs, not quickly, not hesitantly, but steadily, like a path she'd walked too many times to forget. Floor 12, floor 13. No door this time, no hallway, only a wall. But on that wall, something new. A delivery sticker, faded, peeling. It read, Liu Mei, Order 8932, status, pending. And beneath it, scrawled in red ink, still waiting. She placed her hand on the wall. It felt soft, not like plaster, like breath, like skin. The wall pulsed once, then opened, not like a door, like a mouth. And May stepped through. The wall didn't open like a door. It peeled. The surface rippled outward, soft and silent, like a wet curtain parting to let her through. No hinges, no edges, just motion, as though the building had decided, now is the time.
May didn't resist. Her body moved on instinct, one foot forward, then the next. Behind her, the stairwell vanished. There was no going back. The space beyond wasn't a hallway, not yet. It was dark. Too dark. Not empty, just full of something she couldn't see. The kind of dark that feels crowded. She didn't walk. She drifted. Each step landed without sound. Her breathing echoed like it wasn't her own. Even the air felt strange, thin and heavy at once, like she was underwater or on another floor that obeyed different rules. And then, the darkness split open. Light leaked through in vertical lines, like the slats of a broken window. Then, a hallway emerged. She was standing on floor 14 again, but not the one she remembered. The wallpaper was damp, sagging. Black mold crept from the corners like veins beneath translucent skin. The ceiling light above 14C flickered with no rhythm. The carpet was soaked, her boots sinking into it with wet, sloshing sounds. The door was closed, tightly this time, but she didn't need to knock, because from inside, someone whispered, "Come in." Her hand moved without her. She touched the knob. It was hot. The metal sizzled beneath her skin, but she didn't let go. She turned it, pushed, and the door opened. What lay beyond was not an apartment, not anymore. The walls inside were covered in photographs, hundreds, thousands. Black and white portraits of delivery workers, uniforms, helmets, bags slung across shoulders, all staring straight ahead, blank expressions, dead eyes. Some of the faces looked familiar, too familiar. She stepped deeper inside. The floor was lined with receipts. Printed papers fluttered gently as if blown by a wind she couldn't feel. Every receipt had the same destination, flat 14C, wing B. Some have had her name on them, some didn't, but they all ended the same, status undelivered. She tried to turn around. The door was gone. Behind her, only more wall, more photos. She reached for her phone. It powered on by itself. No signal, no app, just a spinning loading icon, then a message. Route locked. You are now part of the system. Her heart pounded. A low sound began to rise around her, not quite humming, not quite speaking, more like chanting, soft and mechanical, a chorus of voices saying the same thing in sync over and over. Flat 14C, still waiting. Flat 14C, still waiting. She backed away. Her foot bumped into something. She turned. A chair sat in the middle of the room, wooden, old, clean, placed precisely in the center. Next to it, a uniform. Her uniform. Folded, dry, laid out as if waiting for her to put it on. She stepped back again, into the photos, into the paper, into the past. A sharp whisper hit her ear. They never delivered either. She spun around. No one there. But now, something had changed. In the reflection on a cracked photo frame, she saw the hallway outside. It was normal again. Clean, bright, familiar. She ran for the door. It was back. She yanked it open. The hallway was real. 14 as she remembered it the first time. Dusty, dim, silent. She didn't think. She ran for the stairs. They were there. She took them two at a time. Down, 13, 12, the lobby, out into the city. The sun was rising, but no warmth reached her skin. She returned to the delivery office, not to ask questions, but to find proof.
She stormed through the front doors and slammed her phone down on the counter. "I need to speak with your supervisor," she said, voice shaking. The young woman at the desk blinked up at her. I'm sorry, we don't have a record of you." May leaned forward. "Check again. Name's Liu May. I've been doing runs for months. I've been stuck in a loop going back to the same place over and over." The woman hesitated, typed something, then frowned. "There's a Liu May listed, but she's marked inactive. From when?" She turned the screen. "Termination date, July 18th, 2021. May stared at it. "That's wrong. I'm standing right here." The woman paled. "But that's not possible." "What?" The woman's voice dropped. "This entry is from the old system. We lost it after the server crash last year. It's not supposed to be accessible anymore." May looked closer. A photo appeared on the file. Not her employee badge, not her ID, just a grainy still image from security footage. Her, standing in the lobby of Fuxing Tower, looking directly at the camera. But the timestamp didn't match. It was dated 2 hours ago, and she hadn't been to the tower today. The woman behind the counter stepped back. "I'm calling someone. Just wait here." But May was already gone. Out the door. Into the street. She didn't run. She didn't scream. She just walked. Because now, something inside her had shifted completely. This wasn't about a floor that shouldn't exist. This wasn't about a ghost. This was about a system that never let go, and a floor that never let you leave once you entered it willingly. She opened her phone. The app had returned. There was one active order, already in progress, assigned to her. No pickup needed, no navigation required, just a single word flashing on the screen. Deliver.
The elevator was waiting. When May returned to Fuxing Tower, not in a dream, not in a trance, but walking step by step with a dreadful calm, the lobby greeted her with silence. The flickering light above the security desk buzzed like a dying insect. The air smelled faintly of mildew and iron, and the elevator doors were already open. She didn't press the button. She didn't need to. The cabin's light glowed softly, as if dimmed just for her. The mirrors inside hadn't changed. She had. She stepped in. The doors closed with a hiss. No buttons lit up. Only one glowed softly in dull orange. 14. She reached for it, but before her finger touched the panel, she heard it. A whisper, soft, behind her, inside the elevator. She turned slowly, her heart pounding in her ears. No one there. Only her reflection, multiplied in glass, layered like thin skin peeled back in endless dimensions. But the reflections weren't right. They weren't mimicking her. They moved just slightly out of sync, blinking when she didn't, breathing when she held her breath. One of them smiled. Just one. Not a twitch, not a shadow. A real, deliberate smile, crooked and cruel, while the others remained still. She backed up toward the control panel. The whisper returned, clearer now. "You're almost here." "Who are you?" she asked. The whisper continued. "Not everyone delivers. Some get lost. Some try to leave. But you're loyal." The voice was genderless, toneless, like memory itself had found a voice and decided to speak. The elevator jerked. It began to rise. The floor numbers didn't appear. No ping, no hum, only motion and the whisper. "They tried to erase us, remove the floor,
patch the walls, seal the stairs, but they forgot the rules.
What rules?
May asked, her voice hollow. Nothing disappears if it remembers how to return. The elevator lights flickered again. The mirrors shifted again. Now every reflection behind her was turning away, one by one, facing the corners, except for one. That one kept smiling. "You're ready," the whisper said.
For what?
"To take her place." The lights cut out. Pitch black. Her breath trembled. She felt the cabin stop. The doors opened behind her, but only a sliver, only wide enough for a shoulder. She turned, looked into the hallway. It wasn't floor 14, not anymore. It was somewhere underneath it. The walls were stripped bare, concrete and rebar exposed like bone. The carpet was soaked and sloshed beneath invisible feet. A single hanging bulb swung slowly from the ceiling, casting sickly yellow light in a lazy arc. The number on the wall was scratched in, not printed, not painted, just carved. 14C, etched in crumbling plaster like a warning. The door to the apartment was open, but not like before, not warm, not inviting, just wide like a mouth stretched too far. And someone stood inside it. Not the woman, not anymore. Something, wearing her skin. It twitched as it breathed. Too many joints. The fingers curled backward like hooks. And in the space where her eyes should have been, darkness. Not black, just empty. The whisper spoke again. She waited for years.
For who?
For anyone. The figure in the doorway moved, not toward May, but back, as if offering her the apartment, like handing over keys to a new tenant. And May understood. This wasn't just about being trapped. This was about succession. Something old, something hungry, something that needed a body to stay anchored. A floor that wasn't removed, but hidden, not destroyed, but fed. And she had kept coming back, willingly. She delivered memory, delivered presence, delivered time. And now the building wanted something in return.
No, I didn't agree to this.
The whisper laughed softly. You're here. That's enough. The reflections in the mirror started whispering too, repeating phrases, echoing each other. She came back. She remembered the way. No one forced her. She knocked. May stumbled backward into the corner of the lift. The elevator did not move. The door stayed open. The hallway breathed. She felt herself shaking. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out. One message, no sender. Step out. Complete your final delivery. Her hands trembled. She typed back, I want to go home. The screen glitched, then showed a reply. You are home. The lift began to grow colder. Frost bloomed on the mirrors. Her breath came out in clouds. And then the lights in the hallway flickered again. The figure was gone, but the door to 14C remained open. A warm glow inside now, the smell of tea, the hum of a radio, just like the first night, like a reset, a final invitation. May's heart slowed. She took one step forward, then another. The elevator did not stop her. It let her go. And as she crossed the threshold of 14C again, for what felt like the 100th time, May whispered to herself, Don't tell them I'm still here. And behind her, the door closed, silently, permanently. The apartment had no temperature. Not warmth, not chill, just stillness, a kind of thermal silence. May stood inside the threshold of 14C, not sure if she had stepped into a room or out of the world entirely. It looked the same. The soft glow of lamps, the ticking of a clock that had no visible hands, photographs on the wall, steam rising from 2 teacups on a low table, even though she hadn't seen anyone pour them. But she was alone, or so she thought. The air around her felt dense, like something unseen moved just beyond the edge of vision, not watching, waiting. Her phone buzzed. She looked down. A new delivery alert. No request, no pickup, just a bold title. Final route active. 14C to unknown. Below it, another line. 3 packages remaining. She frowned. 3? She turned slowly and saw them. Laid out on the floor near the door, 3 insulated bags, identical, neat, sealed tight. Their black material shimmered under the warm light like they'd been stitched together from shadows. She hadn't brought them, but they were waiting, as if she had always intended to carry them. She knelt beside the first one, hesitated, then unzipped it. Inside, nothing she recognized. Not food, not a letter, not even a name. Just a tightly wrapped object covered in layers of wax paper and cloth, damp to the touch and impossibly cold. Colder than it should have been. The kind of cold that clung to your fingers after you touched it. The kind that seeped into your skin like ink. She zipped it shut again. Moved to the second. Another wrapped shape. Different size. Same unnatural cold. She pressed her hand to the surface and felt it shift. Just slightly. Like breath beneath a blanket. She pulled her hand away. The third bag. This one was heavier. She hesitated longer, but still, she opened it and froze. Inside was a mirror. No frame, no border, just glass, smooth and silent. It reflected the ceiling above her, then shifted. Now it showed the hallway. Then it showed her in real time, standing there, kneeling, watching herself. But her reflection didn't match her movements. Her reflection was standing, smiling, holding something behind its back. The mirror pulsed once, then went dark. She zipped the third bag shut and backed away. Her phone buzzed again. Deliver now. No address, no instruction, only the same pin, 14C. The apartment she was already in. She turned toward the hallway and found it was no longer there. The door behind her was gone, the entire entrance replaced by a fourth wall, smooth, seamless, sealed like it had never existed. She wasn't in a room. She was in a box. A new message appeared. Drop-off in progress. The light overhead flickered. The air thinned, and then, one by one, the packages vanished. First the bag with the shifting shape, then the wax-wrapped one, then the mirror. They dissolved, soundlessly like ash blown into the air, leaving no trace. Only the cold remained. Her breath formed clouds in the air. She shivered, And then, the door reappeared, just like that, back in place, slightly open. Beyond it, the hallway was not as she remembered. The wallpaper was torn, the lights were off, and the air was colder than ever. She stepped out slowly. Her boots crunched softly against the damp carpet, and ahead of her, just barely visible in the dark, something moved. Not walked, dragged. May turned back to the apartment, but 14C was no longer a room. It was a black rectangle, a silhouette carved into the wall. No door, no hinges, only void. She ran, past doors that weren't doors anymore, just outlines, past walls that seemed to breathe, past shadows that whispered things she couldn't quite hear. She reached the stairwell. It was gone, replaced by a corridor she had never seen. The air tasted metallic. The sound of dripping water echoed, even though there was no leak. Her hands trembled. Her phone buzzed one last time. She looked. New pickup assigned. ETA now. She turned slowly and saw the elevator doors open down the hallway, though no one had pressed the button. From inside came nothing but frost and a faint echo, a whisper, breathy, distant, yet familiar. It said her name over and over. May, 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 May. She didn't run. She knew there was nowhere to go. The system had rerouted everything. Time, space, logic. There was only one address now, one customer, and she was already late.
The elevator was waiting again. No button pressed, no footsteps heard, but the doors opened anyway. May stood at the end of the hall, frozen, her breath misted in the cold. The corridor behind her had vanished, the stairwell replaced, every exit sealed. Only one direction left, forward, into the box of silver glass, into the hum of something ancient pretending to be new. She stepped inside. The doors closed without a sound. No button panel this time, no floor numbers, just her and the mirrors. They lined every wall now, front, back, sides, even the ceiling. No railings, no panel, no exit hatch, just reflections. Too many of them, all staring back, all slightly wrong. She saw herself, but not quite. In one reflection she was smiling, in another weeping, in a third completely still. Only her eyes moved, tracking, watching, waiting. Her real body stood silent in the center, frozen, her hands clenched at her sides. The air felt like ice. And then, all at once, every reflection moved, except her. They raised their hands in sync, slowly, deliberately. Fingers curled like claws, palms pressed against the glass. And then they whispered, every single one, in her voice, "You stayed too long." She stepped back. The floor didn't move. The elevator remained suspended. Nowhere to go. Every reflection now smiled. Identical. Wide. Wrong. Their mouths opened. Wider. Too wide. teeth like cracks in porcelain, eyes like holes in curtains, flesh that pulsed like screens caught in glitch. The ceiling mirror bent inward. Her own reflection stared straight down at her, face upside down, hanging like a puppet from invisible strings. It blinked, then whispered, "It's your turn now." Her knees buckled. She reached for something to hold, but there were no walls, only mirrors. And when her hand met one, it didn't stop. It passed through, like water, like smoke. She stumbled forward, falling through her own reflection. The world rippled, the mirrors shattered, not with noise, but with silence. They cracked from the inside, veins of shadow slicing across the glass, dividing every version of her into 1,000 pieces. And then suddenly, she was standing somewhere else. A new hallway, clean, bright, modern, freshly painted walls, white tile floors, fluorescent lights overhead, steady, sterile, humming softly. It looked real. She turned. Behind her, the elevator was gone. No mirrors, no doors, just a corridor that extended in both directions, too far, bending at unnatural angles. She walked forward, one step, then two. Each footstep echoed with perfect symmetry, as if recorded. She saw movement ahead, a figure, someone familiar. It was her, standing still, facing away, wearing the same clothes, the same shoes, hair pulled back the same way. May called out. No reply. She moved closer. The figure didn't flinch, didn't turn, until May was just feet away. Then the reflection turned, not with its head, but with its skin. The face twisted around like cloth pulled inside out. The eyes came last, sliding into place like marbles rolling into sockets. And then it smiled. Her smile, but deeper, older, like someone who had already delivered everything. "Welcome," it said. May staggered back. "No!" The thing stepped closer. "You've passed every test. You kept coming back. You remembered the route. You stayed past the final delivery." May shook her head. "I never agreed." The voice cut her off. "Agreement is irrelevant. Repetition is consent." It reached out. Its hand was her hand, but colder. It pressed something into her palm. A phone, identical to hers, already on, already logged in, already assigned. New orders waiting. She looked down at the screen. It showed a delivery map. Every route ended in the same place, 14C, Wing B. But now there was a note beneath the address. Assigned courier, Liu Mei. Status, permanent. She looked up. The hallway was empty again. The copy of her gone. Only the light remained. And far ahead, in the distance, another door stood open, waiting. And her feet began to move, not because she chose to, but because that was what couriers do. They deliver, even when no one remembers ordering, even when no one answers the door, even when the floor doesn't exist anymore, even when the mirror forgets. Which version is real?
The map never changed anymore. No matter where May stood, no matter how far she walked, the route on the screen shifted itself, constantly curving, bending, rerouting, until it formed the same shape every time, a spiral. And at the center of that spiral, flat 14C. She had tested it. She walked south. The map twisted to guide her north. She tried taking side streets, alleyways, stairwells, even back exits through fire doors. But the app corrected her like an invisible hand, always gentle, always firm, recalculating, redirecting, rerouting, until the only direction left was the one she never wanted to take, back to Fuxing Tower again. The city around her had started to feel thinner, less real. People still walked the streets, but their voices no longer sounded like voices, just noise, like echoes left behind by lives that had already moved on. Shadows had no sources, faces blurred when she tried to look too long, and every billboard, every glowing screen, every GPS map eventually glitched, blinking with the same 3 words: return to sender. Even the real world had given up pretending. She stood on the sidewalk outside the tower again. This time, she didn't hesitate. She walked in like she lived there, because maybe she did. The lobby was empty. The security desk was gone. The lights weren't flickering anymore. They were simply off. But the elevator was open, and inside it, not mirrors, not this time. Only one screen, embedded in the back wall. It blinked as she stepped in. New delivery assigned. Origin floor 14, destination floor 14. She laughed softly, bitter, tired. What's the point? I'm already here. The screen responded. You are always arriving, never delivered. She leaned back against the wall, let the elevator close, let it move. But it didn't rise, it descended. Floor numbers appeared this time, but in reverse. 14, 13, 12. Then nothing, just a blank space where numbers used to be. Then another, then another. The elevator was going below the building's memory, below blueprints, below time. And then it stopped. The doors slid open. No sound, no air, just silence so deep it felt like pressure on her skin. She stepped out. The hallway was not a hallway. It was a delivery hub, but not like the one she knew. This one had no workers, no carts, just rows and rows of numbered lockers, all labeled 14C. Hundreds of them. Thousands. They stretched into the dark. No end in sight. Each locker had a name on it. Every name was hers. Liu Mei, Mei Lu, M Lu, Courier 8932. Each variation, each spelling, each time stamped on different dates, years apart, decades even. She stepped toward one, opened it. Inside, a mirror, just like the one in the cold package. Her face stared back, but she was older, worn, eyes hollow. That version of her raised a hand, waved, smiled sadly. She shut the locker, opened another. This time, the locker was empty, only dust and a receipt. She picked it up. It read, "Failed delivery. Item lost in transit. Courier not recovered." She dropped it, backed away. Her phone buzzed. Route updated. New origin detected. She looked down. The map had zoomed out now. It no longer showed streets or neighborhoods, just rooms, corridors, floors without names, stairwells that didn't connect. She wasn't in Hong Kong anymore. Not really. She was inside something else. A system. A circuit made of buildings, deliveries, and memory. A structure made of repetition. The screen flashed again. Deliver to yourself. She whispered aloud. What does that mean? The hallway lights flickered, and then she saw her. A version of herself walking toward her from the far end of the hall. Same jacket, same helmet, same dead-eyed stare. But that version didn't stop, didn't blink, didn't question. It passed her like a ghost, walked straight into the wall, and vanished. May turned back toward the elevator, but it was gone. So was the doorway. Now the lockers were closing in, collapsing toward her like a trap folding shut. She ran. Nowhere to go, no exit, only one screen at the end of the row, glowing, waiting. She reached it. The message was simple. You've arrived. And then another. Confirm delivery. A yes/no prompt appeared. She stared at it. Her fingers hovered over the screen. No sound, no breath, no time, just this one moment. Finally, she pressed no. The screen blinked, then responded. Input rejected. You are no longer authorized to refuse. Her hands dropped, and everything around her went black.
The moment she pressed no, the darkness didn't roar or crash. It simply settled, like dust on forgotten shelves, like silence in a house where no one's lived in years. May couldn't see her hands, couldn't feel her breath, but she was aware. She hadn't fallen unconscious. She had been absorbed. She stood in nothing, inside nothing, and still, the floor beneath her remained. Then, without warning, the lights came back, one by one. Overhead fluorescents buzzed to life. The smell of damp concrete returned, and so did the hallway. Not the locker maze, not the mirrored shaft, but the one hallway she now knew better than her own apartment. The hallway of floor 14. And at the end of it, like always, the door to 14C was open just enough to be an invitation, just enough to make it seem like someone was waiting. The walls had begun to peel. The red carpet was darker now, damp, almost black in patches. Mold crept like fingers across the ceiling. The air held the thick scent of rot, of things left too long. But she walked forward anyway, each step slow, careful. The door didn't creak. It welcomed her in complete silence. And the moment she passed the threshold, she knew she wasn't here to deliver anything. This time, she was the one being received. Inside, the apartment was nearly empty. No photographs, no tea, no ticking clock. Just a single chair at the center of the room, facing the wall. And in that chair sat the woman, still, breathing, barely. Her eyes were open, staring straight ahead, not at the wall, but at a mirror propped on the floor in front of her. Her reflection watched her with infinite patience. She didn't blink, didn't move, didn't acknowledge May's presence, but May could feel it. Something in the air, in the space, registered her return, not with joy, not with relief, but with expectation. She stepped closer, and saw the woman's face clearly now. It had changed again, not younger, not older, but emptier. Like her skin had become a vessel, and most of what had once filled it was already gone. "Why me?" May asked, voice shaking. No reply. "Why this place? Why this floor?" The woman blinked slowly, then whispered, "You kept returning. I didn't want to, but you did." She turned toward the mirror. It no longer showed the woman or the room. It showed her, standing in the hallway, packages in hand, over and over. Different days, different weather, different expressions, but always coming back, always to the same door, always to the same request. She felt sick. The mirror shifted again. Now it showed the elevator. She stood inside it, sometimes alone, sometimes with someone behind her, blurred, unreadable. Sometimes with nothing at all but her own reflection whispering things she couldn't hear. She looked back to the woman. "Why did I have to come here?" But the woman smiled, softly, sadly. "You don't have to choose. You just have to keep showing up." The mirror flickered once more, and now it showed a different image. Her, sitting in the chair, facing the mirror, in the same apartment, alone, waiting. May's breath caught. She looked down. The chair was empty. The woman was gone. No sound, no movement, just the hollow shape of where she used to be. And in May's hand, now without memory of having lifted it, was a small paper slip, like a receipt. It read, "New occupant, Liu May, flat 14C, confirmed. Status, active." Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, one message on the screen. "Customer has been delivered." And then the light in the room dimmed, the mirror darkened, and the hallway outside the apartment slowly faded from view, wall by wall, step by step, until all that was left was her, sitting, watching, waiting, exactly where the woman had been, exactly as others would see her in time, because someone else would be assigned the route, someone else would answer a strange delivery, someone else would climb the stairs when the elevator refused to go any higher, and when they knocked on the door to 14C, they would find a soft-spoken woman in a quiet apartment who would smile just enough and whisper, "Don't tell them I'm still here." The first thing she noticed was the voice. It wasn't hers, not anymore. When May tried to speak, the words came out quiet, measured, soft at the edges, like lace soaked in tea. She'd heard this tone before, from the woman. The same delicate rhythm, the same careful pacing, the same eerie warmth that didn't quite touch the heart. She stood, or at least thought she did. It was hard to tell now what was memory and what was motion. The apartment was different. The furniture had returned. The couch, the old radio, the porcelain tea set on the tray. Photographs lined the wall again, but none of the faces were hers. And yet she knew them, felt them behind her eyes like dreams half remembered, names she couldn't place, stories that weren't hers, but lived somewhere in her bones. She moved through the room. Her body floated as if she were no longer bound by gravity, only habit. She opened the cupboard. Inside were teacups she'd never seen, arranged in the exact order she would have chosen. She lit incense she didn't remember buying. She folded a blanket over the armrest the same way the woman used to do.
all without thinking, without deciding. The apartment wasn't just hers now. It had become her. She reached for her phone on the table, but it wasn't hers anymore either. It lit up automatically. Same screen, same interface, but the name on the profile had changed. Courier, N.A. Status, residing. She tapped it. Nothing happened. Just a quiet hum beneath the screen, as if the phone was still listening, still watching. And then a chime at the door. She froze, not in fear, in recognition. She knew that sound. She had once knocked just like that, hesitant, uncertain, soaked from the rain. She moved to the door, peered through the peehole, but there was no one, only the hallway, dim, still, breathing softly like it always did. She opened the door anyway, and there it was, a new bag, resting on the welcome mat, sealed tight. No courier in sight, just a label for 14C, handled with memory. She knelt, picked it up. Cold. Again. Heavier this time. Inside, not food, not mirror, not packages, but a set of folded clothes. A uniform. Her old one, before all of this. She touched the sleeve. It was still damp from that first delivery. She didn't weep. She couldn't anymore. The part of her that remembered how was dim now. Dim like the stairwell. Dim like the name she no longer said aloud. She turned back inside. The door shut without a sound. The lock clicked, not because she turned it, but because it wanted to be locked. That night she dreamed of stairs, endless spiraling stairs carved from cold metal and red light. She climbed down them barefoot, holding a bag that grew heavier with each step. The air smelled like rust and memory. And at the bottom, waiting for her, was a child, silent, pale, holding a delivery slip with her name on it. The child spoke with her voice, the real one, the old one. Why didn't you say no? May knelt, reached out, tried to take the paper from the child's hand, but it burned her fingers. She awoke with a gasp. The apartment was exactly as she left it, except now, the tea had been poured, and the cup on the opposite side of the table was full. Steam curled upward, and from the hallway came a knock. One knock, not urgent, not soft, just expected. She stood slowly. Her hand touched the doorknob, paused. She didn't want to open it, but her fingers moved anyway, turned the latch, pulled the door inward. No one was there. Just another bag. Just another delivery. And this time, the tag didn't say 14C. It said, Mei Lu, internal transfer, effective immediately. Her breath caught, not because she didn't understand, but because she did, completely. The route had been rerouted.
Not through streets, but through her. Her body, her voice, her memory. She wasn't delivering anymore. She was being delivered, over and over, to the same place, until someone else came, knocked, and opened the door.
There was a knock, not like the others. This one was softer, uncertain, like someone new. May opened the door without thinking, not because she chose to, because she remembered this moment, before it ever happened. A young man stood in the hallway, helmet still on, shoulders wet from the rain. He held a small thermal bag, gripped too tightly in both hands. His fingers shook, but he tried to steady them. His uniform was newer than hers had ever been, a fresh recruit, still hopeful, still human. He looked up, startled by her sudden presence. Delivery for 14C? He said. His voice cracked slightly on the number. She smiled, soft, measured, exactly as she had been taught. "Thank you," she said gently. "Don't tell them I'm still here." His brow furrowed. "Sorry?" But she had already taken the bag, already stepped back, already let the door begin to close. And as it clicked shut, something clicked inside her. The loop was complete, and the log was about to begin. She found the journal tucked inside the tea cabinet. She didn't remember putting it there, but it had her handwriting on the first page. Except it wasn't her handwriting anymore. It was hers before the voice softened, before the memories blurred, before the phone began rerouting her through floors that didn't exist. She opened it. The pages were filled with entries, each one titled the same way: Delivery Log, Unknown. The dates were missing. Time had long stopped being measured in hours or days, only loops, repetitions, returns. She flipped through them, each entry shorter than the last, each one less certain of who she was, each one slowly erasing the self that first entered this building. Some read like notes. Saw my reflection speak before I did. Avoid mirrors. The woman asked me to sit. I sat. I don't remember standing back up. There are doors that don't lead anywhere. If you enter, you don't leave the same. Others read like please. If you're reading this, please, tell someone. Floor 14 is not sealed. It's hidden. I think I'm forgetting my name. I say it to the walls just to hear it spoken. I'm scared, but I keep answering the knock anyway. One entry was nothing but a single sentence. It's not the apartment that traps you. It's the act of returning. She closed the journal slowly, set it down, poured the tea. 2 cups, as always, even when no one came, especially when no one came. Later, she checked the phone. It had updated on its own. The screen now displayed a new message. Route completed. Logging status. She tapped it. The screen shifted and began playing back every delivery she had ever made, every trip up the stairs, every time the elevator stalled at 12, every pause at the door of 14C, each moment re-recorded from outside herself, as if someone else had been watching through a lens she never noticed. It showed her face aging subtly, her steps slowing, her voice softening, until the final frame, her sitting in the chair, facing the mirror, still, waiting. Underneath, a final caption. Status, settled resident, awaiting next courier. She dropped the phone, but it didn't fall. It hovered mid-air, just above the floor, buzzed once, then dissolved. No sound, no smoke, just gone. And in its place, on the table where the tea had grown cold, appeared a fresh slip of paper. She unfolded it. Her hands didn't tremble. She was past that now. The slip read, "Delivery log reset. Assigned courier. TBD. Location 14C. Host confirmed." She read it twice, then a third time. And the fourth time, she didn't need to read it at all, because she had seen it before, because she had written it before, because someone else had once opened the door, taken the package, and whispered those same 5 words, "Don't tell them I'm still here." And now, that voice wasn't someone else's. It was hers.
She had forgotten the calendar. She didn't know what day it was, or how long she'd been here. Time had softened, dissolved into repeated deliveries and recycled footsteps. But somewhere inside her, beneath the layers of echo and ritual, a question remained. What happened last year? It had been whispered once by the security guard, mentioned again in a sealed report, written briefly in a faded slip she found under the bed, yellowed with mold and age. Fuxing Tower hadn't always been like this. It was built in the 70s, back when Hong Kong rose skyward, hungry for space. Dozens of families, generations on top of generations. Laughter, mahjong tiles clacking behind thin doors, the smell of congee rising in the morning. And then, something shifted. Maintenance stopped. The walls cracked, and rumors crept in like rot beneath the paint. People began to leave, quietly, one by one. The building was declared unsafe. Wing B, her wing, was sealed off. But some refused to go, not out of defiance, out of fear. Fear that leaving would mean no one would remember them at all. And so they stayed, invisible, forgotten, until the collapse. That's what the document said. Structural collapse, localized on floor 14, Wing B. Casualties were reported, but no names were released. The records became harder to trace after that. Redacted, buried, erased like a wrong turn on a GPS map. And the tower, like so many others, was slated for demolition, pending endless delays. But in the cracks left behind, something waited. Something formed. Not just ghosts, a system. She stood in the center of the room now, journal in hand, reading an entry she didn't remember writing. Her handwriting, her ink, but the words came from before she became the woman in the chair. The floor didn't collapse. It was folded, tucked away like old laundry, still there, still full. They buried it under a new version of the building. But you can't bury memory, not if it's still looking for a door. She closed the journal, looked up at the ceiling. The ticking had returned, but there was no clock, just the sound of time moving somewhere beneath her. She pressed her hand to the floor. It was warm, then cold, then warm again, like a pulse. She needed to know more, needed to see what she wasn't supposed to see. She left the apartment. 14C let her go this time. The hallway outside was darker, but not hostile. More like watchful, like it knew she wasn't trying to escape, just trying to understand. She took the elevator, not the stairs. The doors welcomed her. Mirrors gone. No buttons again. Only a voice, her own voice, whispering softly from the speaker overhead. "Where would you like to go?" She answered without speaking, just thought the words. The day it happened. The elevator moved, but not vertically. It felt like turning a corner in a dream where the world bends and follows without logic. And when the doors opened, she saw it. The hallway was brighter, clean. Voices echoed faintly. She stepped out and walked through memory. Families passed her in the corridor. No one noticed her. Children carried school bags. Neighbors exchanged vegetables. The elevator pinged on every floor. Life, before everything unraveled. She reached 14C. It was open. A younger woman stood inside, on the phone, arguing gently in Cantonese. She didn't see May, didn't hear her. None of them did, because May wasn't there. Not yet. She was watching a memory unspool. A delivery bag was already sitting at the woman's feet, unopened, ignored. And at the bottom of the stairs, the building began to shake. Not an explosion, not an earthquake, but a folding. Like a floor being turned inward, like concrete remembering a time before it was walked on. Screams rose from below. The woman hung up the phone, ran to the door. Too late. The hallway began to darken, not from fire, not from dust, but from forgetting. Each light flicked out like a name being erased, and then the stairwell vanished. The elevator stopped responding, and a message blinked on every phone in the building. Delivery failed. That's when it began. That's when it chose her. The first one who didn't run. The first one who opened the door. The first one who whispered, "I'm still here." May gasped and stumbled back. The hallway around her flickered. She was back, in the present, alone again. The elevator doors closed, and her phone buzzed softly. One line, "Now you know." She nodded, not with relief, not with fear, but with understanding. She turned back to the door of 14C, walked inside. The chair was waiting, so was the silence. She sat down, faced the mirror, and whispered one more time, not as a warning, but as a welcome. "Don't tell them I'm still here." The hallway was never empty, not really. Even when the doors were closed, even when the lights were out, even when the city had forgotten Wing B existed, they were still there. May didn't see them at first. She only felt them. A soft shift in the air behind her, a footfall that never echoed, a breath that didn't belong to her, a shape in the corner of her eye, always one blink too late to catch. But now, after the elevator showed her what happened, she saw clearly. They never moved out, not during the evacuation, not after the collapse, not even when time kept moving forward and left them behind. They had been folded into the building, not buried, not burned, just rerouted. Like old data on a hard drive, compressed into a part of the system no one opens. They became part of the infrastructure, a new kind of tenant. Not alive, not quite dead, just unremoved. May walked down the hallway, past familiar doors. Each one looked sealed, but each one breathed. She could feel the heat behind them, the quiet murmur of lives continuing in secret. She paused outside 14D, a unit she never paid attention to. The door had no number now, just a faint outline where the plaque once was. She leaned in, listening, and behind it, a voice. A man humming an old lullaby, off-key but gentle. Then the sound of ceramic, a teacup being placed on a table. She whispered through the crack, "Hello?" The humming stopped. No reply. Then, slowly, deliberately, the doorknob turned. Just a little. Not enough to open, just enough to remind her someone was still inside. She stepped back, moved to the next door, 14E. This one had faint red stains on the lower half, not blood, but something older, something that had soaked in. The door pulsed gently as if breathing with lungs she couldn't see. She pressed her fingers to the wood, cold, but familiar. A child's voice whispered from within, "Is it my turn yet?" She didn't answer, didn't know how. She kept walking. One by one the doors acknowledged her, some with sound, some with pressure, some with nothing at all, only the overwhelming weight of presence. It wasn't just ghosts, it was residents, people who had kept living in rooms that time abandoned. Some delivered, some delivering, some still waiting. She understood now why no one found bodies after the collapse, because no one had left. The building hadn't killed them, it had kept them, rewritten their roles, assigned them tasks, gave them rooms and routes and responsibilities that didn't exist in the outside world. May reached the end of the hallway, turned around. Now every door was slightly open, just an inch, enough to let the hallway breathe, enough for her to see the flicker of movement in each unit, enough to remind her she was not alone, not ever. Back inside 14C, she sat down in the chair again, faced the mirror, watched herself, not aging, not changing, just holding. The same expression, the same silence, the same breath over and over like clockwork without ticking. Her phone buzzed. One line appeared. System acknowledged. May Yu, integrated resident. Another line followed. New deliveries incoming. She looked toward the door. There would be more, always more, because once the route existed, it couldn't be closed, just reassigned. She whispered to the room. They never moved out. And the walls answered back, not with sound, but with weight. They knew. They never had to, because 14 was never just a floor. It was a terminal, a waiting room, a trap disguised as routine. And now she was part of the routine. She stood, lit incense, poured tea, folded the blanket, prepared the chair for whoever came next. And when the knock came finally, 2 sharp taps, one soft, she opened the door. A courier stood there, confused, soaked in rain, looking down at their phone, then up at her. Delivery for, I think this is wrong. The app keeps rerouting me here. May smiled, stepped back, and said the line she once heard in another life. Don't tell them I'm still here. Knocking became a ritual. It always began the same way. Rain against the windows, a muted buzz of the elevator that never climbed past 12. A courier checking their phone with a furrowed brow, confused by the persistent reroute. Then, the stairs. Always the stairs. Worn, uneven steps that felt longer with each floor. And then, The hallway. Quiet. Watching. The air still and expectant. A door at the end, slightly ajar, and a soft, familiar presence waiting inside. Her. She never opened the door first. Not anymore. She waited. Always waited until the knock came. 2 soft taps. 1 pause. A third unsure. And then, like instinct, her hand moved. Not out of choice, out of rhythm. The door opened slowly, not wide, just enough to meet the eyes of whoever stood on the other side. Some couriers looked surprised, some nervous, some curious, all of them holding the same bag, unaware they were no longer delivering. They were being delivered. She'd seen dozens by now, young, old, male, female, even one who arrived without a face, just a hazy blur where identity once lived. Each time they asked the same question, "Is this 14C?" And she always gave the same answer, a soft smile, a nod, and the line that had once tethered her to this place, "Don't tell them I'm still here." Sometimes they stepped inside, sometimes they hesitated, some ran. Those who ran didn't get far. The hallway folded back on itself, returned them, like a rejected envelope finding its sender. She watched it happen once, a courier sprinting toward the stairwell, boots slamming against soaked carpet, breath sharp with panic. But when they opened a stairwell door, they were back on the same floor, same hallway, same door at the end, now wide open, and she, standing in its glow, calm, patient, waiting. He didn't run again. Others entered willingly, sat on the couch, held the cup of tea that always stayed warm, looked around confused by how familiar everything felt. Some talked, some cried. One simply asked, "How long?" She never answered. She didn't have to. The walls answered for her, with their silence, with their weight. She began to recognize signs, the ones who wouldn't last long, the ones who were already hollow when they arrived, the ones whose footsteps matched the rhythm of the building too well, as if they were walking a route they'd never learned but somehow remembered. Some came back a second time, fewer a third. By the fourth, they stopped knocking. They simply opened, and that's when she knew the building had claimed them. One night the knock came later than usual, slower, almost reluctant. She opened the door and froze. It wasn't a courier. It was her. Not a reflection, not a memory. Her from before, wearing the same jacket, hair pulled back in the same loose tie, eyes wide with disbelief. She stared at herself, at the version that had waited too long, stayed too still, spoken too softly for too many years. May didn't know whether to speak, but the younger version did. "I don't understand." The older May, the current one, reached forward, touched her own arm. It was warm, alive, untouched by the looping chill of the system. "You don't have to," she whispered. "But you'll come back. You always do." The younger May blinked. "I don't want to." The smile returned, not cruel, not kind, just inevitable. That's never stopped anyone. And then the hallway folded, the door closed, and the younger version was gone. She sat alone for a long time after that, hands folded in her lap. The mirror on the table no longer showed a reflection, just fog, mist swirling inside glass like breath caught in time. She reached for the journal, opened it to a fresh page, wrote, "They don't always look like strangers anymore. Sometimes I open the door and see myself. Sometimes I close it and feel like I've just arrived. It's getting harder to tell the difference." She closed the book, returned it to its drawer, refilled the teacup, lit the incense, and waited. Not with fear, not with hope, just routine, because that's what the system wanted. Continuity, a courier to answer the knock, and a resident to open the door.
It started with a message, not on her phone, on the wall, carved carefully into the paint just above the light switch in 14C. 4 words: "One last delivery remains." She hadn't seen them before. She didn't remember carving them, but the scratches were fresh. The message was clear. The system had decided. She poured the tea, lit the incense, folded the blanket over the arm of the couch just as she always did. Then she stood in front of the mirror. Her reflection looked back, calm but thinner, more like smoke than skin. She touched the glass. This time, the mirror rippled, accepted her hand like water, and the surface darkened, revealing a destination. The elevator. Not the one in the building now, but the original, the first, the one that stopped working the year everything changed. She left the apartment. The hallway felt different, still quiet, still dark, but no longer waiting. Now it was guiding. Lights blinked on, one by one, leading her like breadcrumbs to the elevator that should have been sealed. It stood open, dustless, restored, clean, like time had curved backward to make it whole again. She stepped in, no hesitation. The doors closed behind her. This time, no mirrors, no control panel, just a single light overhead, a single button glowing softly. Complete delivery. She pressed it. The elevator began to descend, deeper than before, below basements, below memory, below the building itself. It passed through levels with no names, only sounds, weeping, laughter, breathing, static. Then, silence, until the doors slid open, and she stepped out. She was in the lobby, but not the lobby she remembered. No peeling walls, no rusted desk, no flickering lights. This was Fuxing Tower as it once was, bright, alive, new, and filled with people. Children running, neighbors talking, someone dragging groceries across the tiles, and no one could see her. She drifted through them like mist. Their conversations echoed around her like echoes in a jar, distorted, distant. She reached the mailboxes, opened one. Inside was a single envelope, no stamp, just her name. She opened it. Inside was a photograph. Her, standing in front of 14C, holding the thermal bag, smiling, unaware. On the back, in handwriting she recognized, though not used in years, were 5 words. "You never stopped arriving here." She turned and saw herself, not in the mirror this time, in the flesh, dressed in courier blue, walking into the building soaked from the rain, phone in hand, eyes scanning,
mouth whispering, "Is this the right place?" Then footsteps behind her. More couriers. Different years. Different faces. Same confusion. They filed in, one after another, through a door that should not exist, each carrying the bag, each destined for the same room. The lobby blurred, melted, became a tunnel, and at the end of that tunnel was 14C, the door slightly ajar, always slightly ajar. She moved toward it. The others followed, not walking, but being pulled, as if the apartment itself inhaled, and all of them, every version, every loop, every lost courier, were simply the exhale. Inside 14C, the lights dimmed, the tea cooled, the incense burned low, and the chair sat empty, waiting for her, for all of her, for the one who had taken the final trip. Because this was it, the final delivery, not to a person, not to a place, but to a purpose, to a seat, to a silence that no longer felt lonely, just complete. She stepped across the threshold. The others vanished. The voices hushed. The world narrowed to a single point. She sat. The mirror fogged. Her breath slowed, and a final message appeared in the center of the table. Etched into the wood, no paper, no device, just a truth carved into the grain. Courier, received. She didn't remember waking. She just was, sitting in the chair, facing the mirror, the apartment quiet around her. No sound, no ticking, no tea. The incense had burned down to ash. The light above her buzzed once, not as a warning, but as acknowledgement. Everything was still. And that stillness told her this was the end. Not of life, but of motion, of questioning, of wondering whether she was the courier or the cargo. She knew now. She had been both. Her phone sat on the table, screen dark. But when she reached for it, it turned on with a quiet vibration. A single message waited. Your default address has been updated. She tapped the notification. The map opened. No streets, no intersections. Just a blinking red pin in the center of nothing. A single name under it. 14C. She swiped left. A new page appeared. Courier ID. Mei Liu. Status: permanent resident. Location: fixed. Assigned role: receiver. Function: anchor point. She blinked. Anchor point. She understood now. The building didn't just feed souls. It needed structure, a focal point, a presence to keep the loop active, someone to answer the knock, someone to stabilize the glitching floor that shouldn't exist, that couldn't be destroyed because it had become an idea, a memory people kept returning to, even if they didn't know why. That was her role now. Not to leave, not to warn, not even to remember. Just to remain, so that the system could keep operating. Because as long as someone stayed behind that door, others would come, carrying deliveries they'd never ordered,
following maps they didn't draw, climbing stairs that didn't end. She stood up, stretched her limbs. They felt lighter than before, almost hollow, but not unpleasantly so. She walked to the window. It was raining again. She watched the street below. Someone stood at the curb, phone in hand, looking up at the building with a confused frown. She recognized the stance, recognized the posture. A new courier, just like she had been. The building pulsed gently, like an organism sensing new oxygen. She turned from the window, checked the hallway. The door was still ajar, as always, waiting. She returned to the chair, sat. The mirror no longer showed her reflection, just the apartment, the hallway, the knock soon to come, everything in its place. And then the doorbell buzzed, not loudly, just a polite chime. She didn't move. She didn't need to. The routine would unfold on its own. The system had learned her, written her into its structure. She was the route now, the destination, the end of every misrouted signal that could no longer be deleted. A pin on a floor that wasn't supposed to exist. And outside, just beyond the threshold, a courier raised a hand and knocked softly 3 times, exactly as she once had. From the other side of the door, she smiled and whispered under her breath, "I'll take it from here."
It begins again, always the same way. Rain on the street. A courier, young, tired, maybe just trying to meet quota, pulls up to the curb on a sputtering scooter, checks their phone, frowns. The address looks wrong, the building looks wrong, but the app insists. Flat 14C, Wing B, Fuxing Tower. The stairwell is dark. The elevator doesn't respond past floor 12, so they climb. And at the end of the hallway, they see it, a single door, slightly ajar, warm light spilling through. And a woman, quiet, calm, already waiting inside. From the outside, Fuxing Tower is still a skeleton in line for demolition. The city's records list it as sealed, condemned, no residents, no utilities, no valid addresses. But the system knows better. Not the government, not the developers, the delivery system. It remembers what others forget. It reroutes, reassigns, recirculates. Because you can erase a floor on paper, but not from memory. Not if someone still lives there, not if someone still receives. And May still receives. Inside 14C, nothing has changed, not truly. The tea always steams, the mirror always fogs, the hallway always breathes softly in the dark. Time doesn't move forward here. It spirals, bends, feeds on routine. The new couriers come and go, or stay. Some return once, some 3 times. Some never leave at all. Some open the door and see someone they recognize. Others open it and see no one, only an apartment that knows their name before they say it. And always the same line. Don't tell them I'm still here. Outside the system, no one notices. A missed check-in, a lost order, an unclaimed route. They blame dead batteries, GPS glitches, poor signals. No one thinks to investigate the floor that doesn't exist. No one questions why the elevator skips it. Because the elevator doesn't stop there anymore. Not because it can't, because it was told not to. Because it knows better. Even machines can learn fear. And floor 14 has become something else. A node, a mouth, a memory with teeth. Sometimes in moments between rainstorms and outages, the building blinks into clarity. A resident reports lights in the sealed wing. A delivery driver swears he saw someone moving behind an upper window. A building inspector hears footsteps on a floor that's been walled off for years. But by the time they reach it, the door is gone. The hallway is dust. The elevator obediently passes floor 14 with a quiet whir. No lights, no stops, just a void between 12 and 15. A space where memory loops, where names fade, where packages never arrive, but always complete. And deep inside, behind the final door, she waits. Not trapped, not angry, just steady, endless, fulfilling a role no one chose, but someone had to. Because the system needed an anchor, and May delivered, again and again, until she became the address, the destination, the one who always opens, the one who never knocks. And outside, in the rain, another courier stares at their screen. Confused, frustrated, shivering. They step off their bike, holding the delivery bag tight. Look up at the old tower. Breathe in and take the stairs. 12 flights, then one more. A hallway with no floor number. A door with no lock. A light glowing warm like it remembers them. They raise their hand, knock once, twice, pause, then a third time, and inside, someone rises from the chair, steps forward, smiles, opens the door, and says, "I've been expecting you."